So everyone, this is Ida. She's one of our apprentices. And Ida, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Aida Solomon, and I'm a senior at the University of Washington. I'm a recent comm major, so exciting, and I'm an apprentice for the awesome Seattle Globalist. So this is an Ethiopian dish, and it's called fırfır. It's one of my favorite dishes. When I was in Ethiopia, I was there a year ago, and I would eat it about 3 times a day, like for every meal, because it was just so delicious and easy to make. And I actually learned the recipe when I was out there. So the main ingredients are injera, which is like the pretty staple food in Ethiopia. And here's what it looks like when it's all cooked and ready. It's a big flatbread, all panned out and everything. And in order to make this meal, you're supposed to rip up the bread in small pieces. So on the side, I kind of prepared that. And
quick question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Do you make your own injera, or do you have a local source that you like to buy from?
Oh yeah, local source. This takes like 3 days to make.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I usually go to either an Ethiopian restaurant or just an Ethiopian grocery store, and they have like a stack ready to buy and you can pick up. So it's really convenient to have that.
Cool. And what's your favorite store or restaurant in Seattle to go to find it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess one of my favorite restaurants is Queen of Sheba.
Oh yeah.
On Broadway. I love that place. And just in terms of convenience, I go to Innat's restaurant for injera. Their food is good too, but their injera is on point. So I usually buy it from there.
Cool. All right. So the next step is you tear it up.
Yes. So I guess it's just the prep phase, but you want to kind of have them all. I usually use about 1 or 2 of the sheets of the flatbread. They come in a stack of 10, and I use 1 or 2 to kind of just to see how the recipe goes. So I cut them up and then put them in the bowl on the side. And that's the first prep that I do for this. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Should I get into it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right, cool.
Yeah. Take me through. I'll just throw questions at you as they come up.
Okay. Awesome. So so to start off, I want to saute I used half of an onion and I cut them up into little chopped pieces. And I like to saute that with some salt in the beginning and olive oil. So I usually keep it on medium heat to start off because we want to make sure that the onions don't cook really fast. So I'm just going to toss the onions in. Okay. And throughout this whole recipe, you probably only need about 1/4 of olive oil. And the key is to use half of it in the beginning and then half of it at the end, because I guess if you use all of it, it's going to dry out the injera really fast. So you kind of want to spread it out. So once the onions start kind of cooking, then you put about half of the olive oil and then wait and kind of let it simmer together. And then at the end, once the injera is kind of all together, then you put in some more olive oil. But for now, we're just going to let the onions cook.
Very cool. And then maybe, Ida, after this, we could have you type up this recipe and we could post it on the Globalist for people watching too.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
So don't feel you have to rush to take notes, everyone who's watching. We'll make sure Ida gets all of the details too later.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, super easy to make too. I'm just going to put a little bit. Okay. And kind of wait for that to simmer. It should take about, I usually give it about maybe 5 minutes on a little bit above medium, I guess, about 5 minutes to kind of simmer and cook together with the olive oil.
Cool. And then what's the next steps after this? Are you preparing other things kind of while that cooks?
Yeah, so I guess for different recipes, you can, one of my parents, what they like to do is they like to put jalapenos in there and mix that up to make it extra spicy. But it kind of depends. I mean, you definitely want to make sure, especially who you're cooking for, you want to keep it mild just in the beginning. It's always safe to not put a lot of spices in it just because you want to see how it tastes at the end. But at this point, I'm making a very basic recipe or version of this. But at this point, some people would put tomatoes in as well. Any kind of vegetables if they really wanted to. But right now, I'm just keeping it simple. So the next thing that I'm just going to do is put about 1/3 teaspoon of salt. Usually I don't like it as salty, so I try to keep it like mild, but not too much. And then I also like to add in, this is just kind of like a freestyle, but I like to add in like garlic powder from Trader Joe's just because I like the garlic powder at Trader Joe's. So that's kind of, so I guess you want to put like any kind of spices that you want, you put at this point, so that it really kind of stays throughout the whole time you're cooking, and it's like you can taste all the flavor of it. So, okay, now that it's starting to simmer, I'm going to put salt.
And what's the whole cook time for this from start to finish?
From start to finish, it's about, I would say 15 minutes for everything. I guess, I don't know, I like to be careful when I cook because I feel that sometimes, like, I don't know, I just like to make sure that every step is done right, and I just give it kind of time. So I guess you could, you know, have the heat on high and cook the onions and really like go fast with it, but I kind of like to watch it simmer, and then, you know, if I want to add something else, then I put it in. But yeah, it's usually 15 minutes for the whole thing.
Cool. And for those who are just tuning in right now, we're talking with Aida Solomon, who's one of our youth apprentices at the Globalist, and she's making an Injera recipe. And if you guys actually have questions for Aida that you'd like me to ask her, you can tweet us at Seattle Globalist. It's at CSEA Globalist. And we'll ask Aida questions on air if you have questions. Yeah, so Aida, what's the next step after this?
Okay, so the next step is where you add the spices. And so this is the staple spice of Ethiopia, I think. It's called berbere. And it's such, I love the color, it's so rich. But it's pretty much chili pepper, but with a lot of different other spices in it that are local to Ethiopia. And you can probably find it in every dish, almost every dish in Ethiopia. It's such a staple spice. But what we're going to do now is, and this depends on people's taste buds, like how much you want. You can also pick this up at a local grocery store, by the way. They usually have like packets of them.
What kind of stores? Are there like stores that would sell that specifically, or is it kind of at most grocery stores?
Sorry, not most grocery stores, my bad. Sorry, Ethiopian grocery stores. But yeah, there are definitely grocery stores. There's one, there's a couple actually. There's one next to Inak's restaurant that I was talking about called Amy's Mercato, and there's another one downtown, and they definitely, I'm pretty sure they sell berbere because it's such a commonly used ingredient, so you could definitely find that there.
Cool.
Yeah, so now that the onions have kind of simmered, we're going to put 1 tablespoon of berbere. And I guess, you know, my dad would put like maybe half a cup just because he likes it really spicy, but I like to keep it, you know, simple. So I just put about a tablespoon.
What other types of dishes is that spice used in?
There's a lot, but there's one called shiro. And shiro is like it's like a sauce, but it's like with chickpeas as well. So that's another great and easy kind of dish to make. Another one called dorowat, or what in general. What is just like with onions and I think even like tomato sauce, tomato paste, and berbere. You can have it with chicken. It's mainly like doro is chicken in Amharic, and you can put chicken, you can put eggs in it. It's a big kind of almost like a stew sauce, and then you put that on the injera, on the flat part of it, and then just start, you know, taking pieces and eating it. So that's another great dish.
Cool.
And also, well, I guess it's for people who are like carnivores, but one of the common meat dishes, like this, which is just cut up beef or lamb kind of stew. There's a paste that you make from berbere with other things, and you just dip the meat in that and just kind of eat it. So it's used for a lot of different kinds of dishes, which is great.
Nice.
Yes. So now, so I set aside about half a cup of water. I measured it before I put it in this cup. But what you want to do now is just add about half of it in, just to kind of see where it goes. At this point, basically what I like to do is and then I kind of turn on high. But at this point, I kind of let the onions and the berbere turn into like a paste with the water. So when I cook it on high, like a lot of it evaporates, but eventually kind of get a little thicker and become like this, you know, homogeneous paste. That's perfect for when you put the injera in. So that's what I'm going to do now. And if you want, you can cover it, or I just kind of keep it open. Yeah.
And then, is that like simmering right now? Because we can't quite see. Is that like, do you bring it to a boil, or does it, yeah?
It's simmering now. Yeah, at first it was just kind of like on medium heat, and now I put on high. And I want it to kind of boil now. And kind of just, yeah, I want it to boil now so that it can kind of start cooking together quickly. And yeah, you'll see a lot of it evaporate.
Cool. Is there a risk, does that ever burn? Because I know I'm usually someone who burns a lot of food. So when I'm cooking it, like, do you ever like burn that at all? Or is it kind of hard to overcook it?
No, I think over time, yeah, it's definitely easy to burn. But at least that's why I like to just kind of just make sure I have everything at a slower pace. But it's not super easy to burn. Yeah, because you put the water in, that kind of makes it. It doesn't. Yeah, with the berbere and the olive oil and the onions by itself, it would burn easily. But with the water, it kind of makes it a bit more of a paste, and so it doesn't. It will burn slower, or it will cook slower.
Cool.
Yeah.
And for those watching while Ida simmers the stew up, we're doing the Give Big broadcast, and if you guys have questions for Ida, you can tweet us at @CGlobalist. And we're hoping to raise $10,000 today for Give Big, and a lot of the donations today will go to support programs like Ida does at our apprenticeship program at the Seattle Globalist. How's that coming along, Ida?
It's coming along really good. Cooking really well now. I kind of like to keep it a bit low just because I don't want to like start anywhere, but yeah, it's coming along well.
And are there any special like techniques that you use while you're like, do you like keep it constantly stirring it, or do you have like special tools or anything that you use while you're cooking?
Yeah, I just keep it stirred. Like I constantly stir it just because if it does like start sticking, or if it does start getting thicker, I want to make sure that it's not sticking to the pan. So it's not. I mean, it's not usually sticky, but just to kind of keep it moving, yeah, I like to cook it. I mix it together, and then I just love the smell every time I like stir it. It's just like it's just a whole waft of this good spices and everything. It just smells great. So yeah, I just kind of watch it and keep an eye on it.
And can you do a quick recap of everything that's in that pot right now?
Yes. So right now we have onions, olive oil, like a little less than a fourth of olive oil, about a third teaspoon of salt, and berbere, about a tablespoon of berbere. But that can vary if you want it spicy, if you don't want it spicy, if you want it more mild. But mine's a pretty mild recipe, so it won't be too surprising. Yeah.
So really the only kind of specialty ingredients are the injera and then that spice you mentioned.
Yeah.
You can both find at an Ethiopian grocery or a restaurant.
Yes, they're the most. I think they're the most common, like staples of food in Ethiopia. And yeah, you can definitely find it at an Ethiopian grocery store or Injera at restaurants if you also prefer that, because a lot of restaurants sell them too. Okay, so I think it's looking like it's getting to be done. So now what I do is, I guess like the way I kind of, well, I put a little bit more water in just because mine's like a little bit, I just want to make sure it's still like a paste. You can add the rest of the water. But now what I want to do is starting to put the pieces of injera inside. And I guess the way I would say this is that, like, you know, when you put pasta in the sauce, and you kind of wait and see like how much pasta you need for the sauce. So that's what I kind of do. I just kind of sprinkle it in. And then once I see like I have a good ratio, then I'll start mixing it. So I won't use all of the injera because I don't want there to be more injera versus the sauce. I want the sauce to still stay there and the taste there. So I'm going to put this on low and just kind of drop them in.
So Ida, how long have you, what age did you first start cooking? Like, how long have you cooked this recipe?
Not this year.
So are you like new to cooking yourself, like learning these recipes, or are these things that have been in your family for a really long time?
I'm definitely new to cooking them, but my parents have always cooked these for us, like these dishes for us, ever since we were little. And then just going to Ethiopia, you know, always having these kinds of dishes, like you're familiar with it. But I guess it's like, it's really not scary, but there's no like recipe that we had. It was just kind of like my mom. To this day, my mom's just like, oh yeah, I just kind of do however I feel. So There's it's more of like it varies, and it's you always what I like about the dishes is that they are different, very distinct, but they're all really good. So restaurants here won't all be the same, in Ethiopia will all be the same. They'll have their own kind of spin on it. So the recipe kind of changes, but it's a really it's a freestyle recipe. You can kind of do whatever. Yeah. And but yeah, I definitely learned it this year. And then I guess so now what you want to do is that when you're mixing it, you want to kind of fold it in because with Injera cooking, it's easy to break apart. So you want to make sure that it still stays in its form. So kind of like, I guess, like icing or folding, like, you know, when you're baking, you just kind of fold it all together. And that way you can get all the sauce in like each part and still be able to taste the sauce in each part.
And is this typically like something you'd make for like a quick lunch, or is it more of like a bigger dinner meal?
Well, I guess this is a really, I mean, this is a common meal in general, but I used to always have it for breakfast.
Oh.
So it's a pretty common breakfast meal. But again, you can have it at like any time of the day. It's pretty normal. I know some of my friends are like, wait, you have like that spicy dish in the morning? I'm like, yeah. It's very common for breakfast in Ethiopia. All right. And pretty much done. So I guess at this point, you know, you can do like a taste test if you want more salt. If you want to add more berbere, you could, but it won't be like as well cooked. It'll be very like new berbere, so it kind of tastes a bit dry. But yeah, usually I kind of just taste one corner, one piece. Oh yeah, it's really good.
I wish I could try it. You're gonna have to make this for me again later.
I know. I was gonna say I have to bring it into the Globalist to like a food party, and then you want to see the finished product. That is pretty much what it looks like.
Oh, very cool. And do you put are there any like garnishes or anything else that you put on it, or you just eat it straight like that, straight out of the pot?
I just usually eat it like this. I guess like I like to eat it with a fork, but traditionally you do put another like piece, the flat part of you just keep the injera, you put it on the bottom, and then you eat the injera with the injera. That's like the most traditional, common way to do it. But I just kind of like for a quick meal, I'm just gonna use a fork because I just don't have time. But yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And any other tips for people who are wanting to dive into Ethiopian cooking or learning more recipes for the first time? Do you have tips for first-time people?
I guess like, you know, with anything, it's like practice. Like the first time that I made this, it was not good. And I went to Ethiopian restaurants and like I just even asked like how they prepared it, what, you know, how they cook it, you know, and just kind of like the measurements are kind of hard to get from people, but if you'd like just say that you're new at this and you want to learn, they probably will give you like starting measurements. But I mean, honestly, I would just say freestyle it because I think I mean, learn the basic ingredients in the recipe, but it's more fun to kind of explore and make your own creation. I think that's what's so cool about this. It's very easy to manipulate it and just change it around. So I would definitely say just, you know, try it out.
Cool. And so we're doing this Give Big fundraiser today, Ida. So if you could tell people one reason why they should give big to the Globalist, why it matters to you, what would it be?
Yeah. I think that it's really important to keep these independent publications alive because what I've found with the Globalist is that I can report on issues that relate to me and that I can have a voice in. So I think that's so important because you want to make sure that you're having those voices that are maybe not as common in mainstream news media. You want to make sure that those people are heard, and the Globalist supports that and gives that opportunity for people to like this program to go out there with our gear, with our cameras, and go out and report on these events and these things that really are interesting to us that relate Seattle to the rest of the world. So I think it's absolutely important to keep the independent journalists alive.
That's beautiful. And can you tell people what they can expect for future reporting from you, what you're working on?
Yes. So as I think you guys have probably guessed, my parents are from Ethiopia, and I've always, growing up in Seattle, it's been interesting kind of getting two different perspectives of what Ethiopia is in Western mainstream media and what it is actually in Ethiopia. And what I love about this apprenticeship is that it's giving me the opportunity to kind of bridge those two realities together and to make sense of it. So what I'm kind of working on now is I'm curious to also see how Ethiopian Americans are expressing who they are and creating their identity through art. So you can expect to see some really cool Ethiopian Americans in Seattle who all have kind of different passions through art, but are still kind of, I don't know, building that bridge of their American and Ethiopian identities together, and it's pretty exciting. So look forward to that.
That was beautiful.